All right, well, thank you everyone for coming. I'm Jessica, the author of Chicago Scavenger. I'm thrilled to be here with you tonight. So thank you to Sadia and the Gale Board and Library for having me, and to everyone for tuning in. I'm coming to you from my home in the Wicker Park neighborhood of Chicago. And if you're curious about Chicago, you're in the right place because we've got lots of neighborhoods to explore tonight. There we go. So this is a scavenger hunt. And the way that we're going to explore the city is through some riddles. So we've got lots of riddles to solve tonight. And I like to keep things interactive. So I'm going to start out by giving you some background on how I wrote the book. And then we will start exploring the city through these riddles. And if anyone in the audience can solve them, you can go ahead and put your answers in the chat. So I hope that there's a good balance of maybe some places you recognize around town and also some hidden gems for you to discover. I hope no matter how long you've lived in the area or if you're tuning in from somewhere else, there'll be something new and something fun. So a bit about me. I am not from Chicago originally. I grew up in Cleveland. And I started making scavenger hunts in my grandma's backyard with my cousins. We would draw little maps to this wooded area by her backyard and go on hunts there. And I never knew that one day I would get paid to write a scavenger hunt book. I really didn't. So it was a delight to work on. But I got started in Chicago. I moved here about 12 years ago, and I was just very excited to be in a new city and curious about everything Chicago had to offer. So I started just asking questions about buildings or artworks that I saw as I was going on a walk, and I would research the answers and start blogging about them. So I was blogging on my own website, and I started also writing for other publications around town. So that's kind of how I got started writing about Chicago. Now, I published my first book, Secret Chicago, in 2018. Some of you may remember I gave a talk about that. And that features 90 places in and around Chicago that are a little bizarre or offbeat. So I used to like to say that it was kind of a scavenger hunt to a hidden side of the city, but now I've written an actual scavenger hunt called Chicago Scavenger. And this is both for Chicagoans, people who live in Chicagoland, and people visiting town who want to get to know the city in a different way. So the book covers 17 neighborhoods all across town. You'll see on the map here, there's a mix of north, south, and west sides. And we will visit one place from each of these neighborhoods in the book tonight in our program. And my goal in writing this was really to get people curious about the city and the people who live here, inspire them to visit places that are new to them. So why did I get going on this scavenger hunt project? Well, about a year into the pandemic, I was talking to my publisher about ways to get people engaging in the city again and each other in a safe way. So we had the ambitious plan to make a scavenger hunt all across town, and all of the places in the book are featured are outside. So you can gather together safely outdoors and enjoy the city's neighborhoods. And that's my bike there in the photo, which I used to get around town for much of the book. So it's a big city, as we all know. How did I choose the sites? Well, each section covers a neighborhood. It's a little mini neighborhood tour. And I chose neighborhoods that had notable places that were close enough together so that people could easily get around, whether you're taking public transit or biking like I was for much of the time, walking around. So the sites that I chose are either visually interesting, maybe historic, or just meaningful to the culture of the neighborhood. So I did a lot of reading, but I really enjoyed getting back out after a year or whatever in my apartment and spending time in the neighborhood. So I ate at a lot of restaurants, I spoke with people, and I just kept my eyes and ears open. It was really joyful for me as I was writing this to get back out into the city and remember why I love this place so much. It's not easy to fit all of the significance of a place in just a few lines of a poem or a little riddle. So my hope is that when people encounter interesting places on these scavenger hunts, it will inspire them to do a little more research on their own and learn more about them. But the kinds of places that you'll find are things like little known museums, public art, natural areas like parks, very important to me during the pandemic, historical markers, and then just, small businesses and restaurants who I know had a hard couple of years. So I really wanted to spotlight them in our communities as well. So how do you use this thing? It is a spiral bound book, so it's really meant to be taken out and used. So you can embark on the adventures in any order. I did just put them in order north to south, and then in each section, I put them in a suggested route, which you can really do it in any order. You can, compete with your family or friends, or just, keep it in your car. And when you've got a little extra time, you want to go on a solo adventure, just take it out. But there are about 20-ish clues in each neighborhood. And yeah, they're in a suggested route if you want to follow it that way and go along the tour, or carve your own path. And this is just an example of what it looks like. Here's one of the clues to a place in Logan Square. So there's the riddle itself, there's a photo that I took, and then another additional photo or illustration. So here's a photo of Louis Sullivan. So those are just extra little visual clues to go along with the riddle. So as I mentioned, there's lots of uses. You can, take this out on your own, challenge your family and friends. If you've got a neighborhood association or a club or a group, you can use it as a team building activity. Or, if you've got guests in town, it's a great way to impress them or maybe give them something to go off and do for a few hours on their own. So lots of uses for the book. And again, it's for anyone who's curious about Chicago. So without further ado, let's get into some of the riddles. We are going to start off in the near north side. This is a very picturesque area. It includes neighborhoods like Old Town, Streeterville, Gold Coast, River North. So lots of historic architecture, shopping, and dining in this neighborhood. And here is our first riddle. 4 Old Town faces cast in stone came from a German theater, displayed where comedy is shown. Discover the next big star here. I'm hoping that I don't have a poetry background, so I'm hoping that the riddles that I wrote will make sense to the readers. I think they will. I think they're pretty fun, but we will see. So if you think you know where I could be referring to, go ahead and type it into the chat. Oh, Susan. She's got it. This is indeed the Second City. So it's a legendary improv comedy theater, and it's in the Old Town neighborhood. It was originally in Hyde Park because it was a group of University of Chicago students, but it's been here in Old Town for many decades. And there's famous alumni in comedy like Harold Ramis, Tina Fey, Bill Murray, who went through the program. And the thing though is there's another part of history here, which is this terracotta frieze that you see in the photo, which was also from the previous photo that I showed you. This is salvaged from the Schiller Theater. This was a theater designed by the architectural team of Adler and Sullivan that was demolished in I think 1970s. And so preservationists wanted to save as much of the theater as they could. So they saved it, and it's now in front of the Second City. So when you go by, you're not just seeing comedy legends, you are seeing the faces of these German writers and philosophers out front too. And it's great to see these pieces of our architectural history preserved. All right, we're going to the south side next. We're heading to Hyde Park. It's well known for hosting the 1893 World's Fair in Jackson Park, also for being the home of the University of Chicago. It's also the home to this artwork. Here's our riddle. Next to a garden gifted from Japan, on the wooded island this sculpture stands, you'll see lotus petals reaching up tall, a message of peace and harmony for all. Does anyone know what this is called? This is a newer work of art in Chicago. Any guesses? This is called Sky Landing, and it's by Yoko Ono. It's actually her first permanent artwork in the Americas. And it's meant to resemble lotus petals reaching up into the sky as a symbol of peace. And it's in Jackson Park next to the Garden of the Phoenix, which was where the Japanese garden was for the 1893 World's Fair. And after the fair, the pavilion and the garden remained as a symbol of friendship between the United States and Japan. And Yoko Ono was born in Japan, so she wanted to build her artwork here to promote healing and harmony for all people. And she has a Sky Landing website. You can go there and add your own wish for peace if you'd like to check it out and see wishes for peace for people around the world. But it's a very cool installation on the island. It fits into the landscape well. And right now, I haven't gone myself, but the cherry blossoms I know last weekend were blooming in Hyde Park, and I saw some beautiful photos of the cherry blossoms, and also like some of the cherry blossoms specifically around this sculpture, and some gorgeous photos. So don't know if how long they will last. I don't know if this rainy weather we're having is going to ruin that, but might be a good time to go check this one out. All right, up to Andersonville. This is an inviting neighborhood with lots of small businesses, a proud LGBTQ community, and Swedish roots. But might not know about this place. Look for misdirection along Clark Street. Just finding the entrance is a feat. Go in, but leave your detergent behind, and prepare for these wizards to blow your mind. This is a fun one. Any guesses? These posters might be a clue. All right, this is the Chicago Magic Lounge. Now, this is the front door. It doesn't look like anything special, but if you look up at the top of the photo, the ceiling above the door is the word misdirection. And that's a little bit of a clue to people who are looking for the entrance here. When you go inside, it looks like an old vintage laundromat. And then behind a hidden door in there, you go into a magic lounge. So there's multiple theaters and bars inside of this magic lounge, and they specialize in Chicago style magic, which means that it's magic that it's quick, it's up close, like at your table or maybe at a bar. And the magicians are very personable, they're funny, and they're performing in a smaller setting. So that's is known as Chicago style magic. And it's a beautiful space. It's only a few years old. A really fun place to go hang out with a group, or maybe for a special occasion if you've got friends in town. It's unexpected, and it gives you that little bit of a hidden gem feel, because you have to find the entrance and then go through the secret door inside. So I recommend that one. Going to the near west side, this is an area just west of the Loop. Think neighborhoods like Greektown, Little Italy, and the West Loop. So there are now these days, especially in the West Loop, lots of trendy hotels, lots of restaurants, but you can still find traditional businesses and restaurants in the community. You can also find this. It's the only address you'll find on the street where trainees learn to beat the heat. The Great Fire's origin marked by a bronze flame. Mrs. O'Leary's cow took the blame. So I think many of us know the story about her cow, that false story, the cow was acquitted, but any ideas of what I could be talking about? What is at this address today? Did I stump you? So on the site of the Great Chicago Fire is the Chicago Fire Academy, Chicago for you to commemorate the place where the fire started by putting the Academy for Firefighters to learn how to fight fires. And there's also this sculpture here. It's a bronze sculpture called Pillar of Fire, commemorating the location where the Great Chicago Fire started here on DeKoven Street. Again, this is Illyria and her cow were exonerated, but you can see where the fire began. All right, we are heading to Bronzeville. Bronzeville was nicknamed the Black Metropolis because it was a center of historic African-American culture and innovation in Chicago. Lots of African-Americans moved to this area from the South as part of the Great Migration. And it was one of my favorite neighborhoods to write about and explore because it's packed with so much history. You know, people like Louis Armstrong, Ida B. Wells, the Marx brothers have all lived in Bronzeville. So there's so many stories to tell about the neighborhood. Here is one. The nation's first museum of Black art was created by the WPA, a space that has Black culture at its heart and still hosting exhibitions today. Has anyone been to this museum? Any guesses? So this is the Southside Community Arts Center. It opened in 1940. It was a part of the Works Progress Administration during the Great Depression. There were several museums opened as part of that. I believe this is the only one that is still remaining open. And it's the first Black art museum in the United States. I found that unbelievable. That it was, 1940, and it's in Chicago and it's still open today. So their mission is to preserve, promote, and progress Black artists and their work. So highly recommend going to check it out. All right, over to Logan Square. This is a community area located along the scenic boulevard system on the west side of Chicago. It's a pretty trendy area, always got lots of new restaurants and bars opening there, but also old greystones and the boulevards to enjoy as well. So I wonder if anyone has enjoyed this place. Part ice cream parlor and part candy store. It's famous for welcoming England's Fab Four. Down Western Ave, it's neon lights the way. Order a slip or atomic sundae. I'm getting hungry just thinking about it. Does anyone have any guesses for this riddle? I believe it's over 100 years old at this point. I want to say last year was its 100th anniversary. Guesses? Well, then I highly recommend checking out Margie's Candies. Although I did just learn about some delicious ice cream that you have near the library, that I need to come and check out that ice cream cart someday. But if you're in Logan Square, come to Margie's. It has been an ice cream parlor and confectionery since 1921, owned by the same family for all these years. And inside, the shelves are lined with memorabilia. There's all kinds of nostalgic things in there, pop culture kind of things. There is an area lined with Beatles memorabilia because the Beatles visited here in 1965, and supposedly they ordered the 6-scoop atomic sundaes and enjoyed them. But it's got a great vintage feel inside and delicious ice cream, of course. We're going to go up to Chicago's northernmost community now, Rogers Park. It's one of the most diverse neighborhoods in the city. So there's a lot of great international dining and shopping and a great local arts scene. So, and as you'll see in this photo, some access to the lake and the beaches, which is where our clue is going to take us. Near the lighthouse, take a stroll, wander down to the sandy knoll, native landscape being restored, admire the shorebirds and the forbs. Forbs, a word that I learned while I was researching this. Any guesses? All right. Well, did you know that Chicago has a dune? This is the Loyola Dune. It's a habitat around Loyola Beach, kind of the south end near that lighthouse. And it's where this part of the beach was no longer being maintained. So the vegetation just started growing up again. And people decided to just, or the park, I guess, decided to just let it grow. So now it's in this early stages of dune succession. So we're trying to, let the dune reclaim this part of the shoreline because it helps stabilize the shoreline and reduce erosion, which we know is a problem with our lakefront, and return native species here. So you can spot nesting shorebirds and grasses and different kind of native plants and things. Right now is migration time for birds. If you know any birders, they've been talking about it. Of course, we have a bird sanctuary at Montrose Beach as well. But I'm willing to guess there's probably some migratory birds who are going through here in the next couple of weeks and hanging out at the dune. So it might be a good time to visit. All right, going to go to Bridgeport. Bridgeport is famous for baseball and bungalows. The White Sox are here, and growing arts scene and restaurants, all kinds of great reasons to visit Bridgeport. But here's our clue. The city was built where two watersheds meet. This maritime story is vital and offbeat. Aquatic history from fur traders to canoes, steamships, tugboats, and freighters. Anyone know what I'm talking about? There's a hint to the name in the riddle, or the name is in the riddle, I should say. No guesses? Well, I am a lover of museums. Especially I love, a smaller, specific museum, and this is the Chicago Maritime Museum. Chicago has a close relationship with water. Of course, we've got the river and the lake right there in our flag, the two blue stripes. This museum tells the story of Chicago as a maritime city. So they do that with all kinds of artifacts. They've got model ships, artworks, displays, books, articles, all kinds of things to show that history through time. And the museum is located inside the Bridgeport Art Center, which is this building that you see here. It's in the old Spiegel building, and it is located on the banks of an infamous body of water called Bubbly Creek. You may have heard because of the nearby stockyards for many, many years, where they would dump some of the carcasses and remains from the stockyards into the river, and the carbon would make the water bubble, and you can still see a little bit of that to this day, even though the stockyards have been closed for a while now. So that's why it's called Bubbly Creek, right next door to the Art Center. Okay, going up to Uptown. So in the book, I did combine the Andersonville and Uptown neighborhoods, but I've separated the clues out here. Uptown was an entertainment powerhouse in the 1920s. Still lots of entertainment happening there today. Lots of live music, historic architecture, and again, great food scene. There's so many great food scenes in Chicago neighborhoods. It's one of the reasons why I love this city. Let's check out the clue. Built to resemble a castle in Spain, a giant neon marquee spells out its name. It hosted roller skating and ballroom dance. Catch a rock concert if you have the chance. Has anyone been to roller skating or a rock concert here? I've been to rock concerts, not the roller skating. That would be fun. Darlene guessed the Aragon. Yay, correct. So I was surprised to learn all the ways that the building was used over the years. This is a great building to visit by day or night, because if you go at night, you can go inside and admire the interior that was built to resemble a Spanish village, complete with a starry sky ceiling. I got to go back let's see, about a month ago, I went to a concert and it was very interesting to be inside at a concert again. And I was just standing around admiring the space and being in awe of being in a room and listening to live music again. That was wonderful. But yeah, you look up and there's a constellation on the ceiling. Very pretty. But if you go visit by daytime, then you can admire all of the more architecture details that you see. Usually if I'm over there, I'm going to a concert and I'm just kind of going inside. But when I stopped and look at, picture like this, and you see all the detail and the architecture, it's really a beautiful building. All right. Over to the Loop. We all know that the Loop is Chicago's downtown. Do you know how it got its name? Oh, sorry, Darlene, your dad won many dance contests there. Was it ballroom dance or a different style? Are you also a dancer? Does it run in the family? Ballroom. Oh, wonderful. That's fantastic. Has anyone gone roller skating inside? Now I'm curious. Or maybe let us know the best concert you've seen at the Aragon, because I know there's been some really big names there over the many years that they've been around. I'm trying to think of the best concert I've seen at the Aragon. Oh, Patti Smith, amazing. I just heard that she's coming to the Metro soon, so that might be fun to check out. Oh, Patti Smith's amazing. I've got her book right on the shelf over here. And I got to see her at Riot Fest last year. And little known fact, she was born in Humble Park. So she's a Chicagoan by birth, if not if not by residence. All right. We know that, yeah, the Loop is Chicago's downtown. It got its name. Does anyone know how it got its name? It's from the loop of the train tracks. But it started out with just a few houses, a fort down by the river. And of course, in the many, many years, lots of historic moments have happened in the Loop since then. But there's more to the Loop than you think. There's parks and theaters and iconic architecture. So this was a fun section to dig into and write about. It was hard to choose what to feature in the Loop. Here's our clue. There we go. East of the Lions, find a portal to the past, a remnant from a building that didn't last. Salvaging this space, sadly, one man died. Now its trading room is preserved inside. Any guesses? Oh, Susan, you were right. The Loop of the L's. If we were in person, I would have prizes for everyone who guessed it correctly, or candy at least. Any guesses for this one? All right, you might recognize it when I pull back the photo. This is the Chicago Stock Exchange Arch, and it's located behind the Art Institute. So it's from the Chicago Stock Exchange building that was built in 1894 by Louis Sullivan and Dagmar Adler. And it was demolished in 1972 when Chicago was losing a lot of its historic buildings, kind of like that the Schiller Theater that we talked about earlier. There was a photographer named Richard Nickel who helped document and salvage some of the architecture being lost around town at the time. And he was at this construction site documenting the room, taking photos before he tragically died in an accident there. So he never lived to see it, but the Art Institute did reconstruct the trading room from that building inside. You can go and see it. It's one of my favorite spaces in Chicago. If you happen to read my book, Secret Chicago, I talked about that space in there because it's very peaceful and quiet, and all the beautiful details have been restored. So this picture on the left is from that room. But outside, you don't need to pay to go inside the Art Institute. You could enjoy the gorgeous ornament and detail of this arch from the front of the building that's just hanging out behind the Art Institute. So I'm just happy that we can still enjoy these beautiful details thanks to people like Richard Nickel who helped preserve, if not the whole building, these parts of it so we can still enjoy them today. All right, we're going to Pilsen. Pilsen is a neighborhood that got its name from the Czech people who settled there. But since the 1950s, it's been a predominantly Mexican community. There's colorful street art. There's fantastic food around every corner. So you'll understand why Pilsen has attracted a lot of artists in recent years. Here's our clue. Featuring Mexican art and culture, collections from both sides of the border. Works by Aztecs and Rivera, you'll see. Museum admission is always free. Any guesses in Pilsen? Darlene's got it. It's the National Museum of Mexican Art. This was the first Latino art museum accredited by the American Alliance of Museums. I was the only one for a very long time. I think there are two now, but it's home to one of the country's largest Mexican art collections. And this goes from ancient Mexico all the way to the present. So they've got thousands of artworks. And as I mentioned in the clue, the admission is always free. So whenever I'm in the neighborhood, I love to just pop in and see what's new, what their newest exhibit is. And you can just kind of walk around and enjoy it without, it's not a huge museum. So I mentioned that I like small museums that you can just kind of pop in and see what the latest is. But right now they do have a Frida Kahlo exhibit running. So I haven't been down to check that out yet, but I'm looking forward to it. Great gift shop too. All right, we're going to go up to Logan Square from here. It's a very charming neighborhood. It's got German roots, old world character, got great little boutiques and restaurants. And I like to say you'll see one student carrying an instrument case for every two strollers. Kind of a hint to our clue. We'll put up the riddle here. When you spot the owl, come on in. For budding musicians, it's the place to begin. Banjo and accordion are just two of the musical skills they can teach you. Anyone know where to learn musical skills? You'll see I've got some guitars on the wall, but they're on the wall because I have not been playing them. So this is a place where one of these years, I really need to enroll in a class and dust those guitars off. Susan's got it. It's the Old Town School of Folk. It's a little confusing because the name is Old Town. We talked about Old Town way at the beginning of the program, but they've been in the Logan Square neighborhood for many years. They were originally in Old Town back when they were founded in the 1950s. And musicians like Steve Goodman and John Prine were students there back in the day. Now, the owl that I showed you over here is there because the building itself used to be the library before they built the very big Sulzer Library in the area. So if you check out the Old Town School, they've got a concert hall. They do shows there sometimes. Besides just the student shows, they have shows that are open to the public. There's a music shop inside. You can get instruments or sheet music. And of course, classrooms. They teach all kinds of classes. I've always wanted to take guitar, but they've got some really eclectic instruments that they offer classes for too. And I know plenty of little kids who are learning music there, which is very neat. During the pandemic, they have been offering virtual classes too. So you would have thought that would have been the time for me to get enrolled, but I guess I was too busy writing books. I need to carve out some time for music. Susan's right. It's not just folk music anymore either. That's a very good thing to note. All kinds of music. All right, let's head to Chinatown. This is Chicago's Chinatown is one of America's thriving Chinatown. So the last statistic I read was that it's the only one in the country that is growing. So a lot of Chinatowns are shrinking in population, but Chicago's Chinatown continues to grow, and it's kind of spilling over into Bridgeport at this point too. So that's very cool. But in Chinatown, you'll find streets with decorative arches and pagodas. There's family-owned restaurants, traditional grocery stores, of course, some souvenir shops, and Chinese influence from all over Mandarin and Cantonese, alongside Szechuan and Taiwanese in this culturally rich community. So love hanging out in Chinatown, of course, eating. But we're not going to talk about food today. We're going to talk about, here's our riddle. Named for a pillar of the community, there's 4 tall dragons that line the entry. Stroll the bamboo grove and the ginkgo trees. Catching the water taxi is a breeze. Has anyone been here? It's a place named for the individual here. Oh, very close, Susan. I think I'll give you the points. It's Ping Tom Park. So if you may not recognize Ping Tom, but there he is. And here is the park that's named after him. He was the most prominent civic leader in Chinatown. So he got the park named after him. And this is a beautiful 12-acre park along the Chicago River. It was once old rail yards with this great riverfront real estate. So thankfully for all of us, it's been converted into a gorgeous park. And in the park, there are Chinese elements in the design. So you'll see these 4 pillars here. The columns have dragon details on them if you look up close. You'll see the pagoda in the background of the shot, where it's right along the river, and that is where you can catch the water taxi. So that's a really fun way to visit Chinatown if you're in the Loop, or I think the West Loop, some other locations where you can pick up the water taxi and then take it to Chinatown, enjoy the park, grab some lunch, and then you can take the water taxi back. Such a neat feature, I think, that Chicago has. Also next to the park is a almost 200-foot tall vertical lift bridge. So it's like a very old vintage bridge that's kind of like this, and then it just goes up and down. It's really cool to watch. But a beautiful views from the park as well. What else? Oh, they also have a boathouse here. So you can rent, a canoe or something and go enjoy the river. All right, we are going to Lakeview. There's something for everyone in Lakeview. We've got the sports bars of Wrigleyville to the LGBTQ friendly clubs of North Halsted, which used to be called Boys Town. Lots of theaters, live music, and even the cemetery is fun. I've got a few places from Graceland Cemetery in the book, so hopefully everyone else enjoys walking through cemeteries as much as I do. Here's our clue. A colorful thunderbird spreading its wings is one of Chicago's more surprising things. A copy of the piece which once stood here, the original's been gone for many a year. Does anyone recognize this? If you don't recognize it up close, you probably will when I pull back a photo here. It's this totem pole that you'll see in Lincoln Park. This is right around Belmont Harbor. And this is a replica. So the original totem pole was purchased by the founder of Kraft Foods, who gave it to the children of Chicago in 1929. And the totem pole was carved by Vancouver Island, I hope I don't mispronounce this, Kwakiutl Indians. And in the 1980s, it was returned to Canada and it was replaced with a replica. So this is the one that we have here today is a replica of the original. And it was, the replica was carved by Tony Hunt, who is a chief of the Quagga tribe. So this is 40 feet tall and it's made out of red cedar. And you'll see the Thunderbird that has also a white whale tail and a sea monster. So of course, I mentioned it's from a tribe that's on Vancouver Island. So birds and whales and sea monsters are, you know, something that they're used to seeing. So they carved this beautiful work, and then we had it replicated here. So the original is back with the tribe, but we can still enjoy this piece of history. And it's a beautiful thing to stop and admire if you're going through the park there, right around Recreation Drive. Oh, Holly also enjoys the cemeteries. If you have any favorites, let me know. I did go through Graceland on my birthday a couple of years ago in the pandemic because there's nothing to do and we couldn't go inside. You know, we had to be outside, and it was spring, and I said, let's go look at all the flowering trees, and there were bird watchers in there. People brought their kids to hang out, which is what people used to do, you know, back in the day at cemeteries. So it was interesting to see that kind of taking on that form again as a place to enjoy nature. Not usually crowded, so it's a good place to social distance. All right. Oh, Susan says Elgin has a great cemetery walk in September at Bluff City. Oh my gosh, I will need to check that out. Thank you. Yeah, they're historic. They're usually beautiful, and again, not too crowded. They're a great place to take a walk. All right, Pullman. So this is Chicago, or the only national monument in Illinois, not just Chicago. It's in Chicago. It is Pullman, which was a company town that was built for employees of the Pullman Palace Car Company in the 1880s. It was very important to US labor history. There were a few very important strikes organized here. And also the first African-American labor union was organized by Pullman porter workers in 1925. So today you can walk the picturesque streets of Pullman and admire the brick homes. You see the ones that were built for the executives that were a little fancier, the ones that were built for the laborers. So even just walking around and seeing the differences of the architecture tell a fascinating story about the different groups of people who lived and worked in Pullman. Here's our clue. When visiting Pullman, here's where you start. This building was at the factory's heart. A giant clock shows you where you can enter. For info at the visitor center. Has anyone been to Pullman? It's not Haymarket, although that's a great guess because that was also a labor demonstration. So lots of labor history here in Chicago, and usually on Labor Day, I make a little nerdy history post on social media about labor history here for Labor Day. This is the administration clock tower building. So this was, you know, one of the main buildings when you were traveling to Pullman back in the day to, you know, go do business or go to work or whatever. You get off and you would see this was like one of the big buildings that greeted you, and there was a big lake next to it, which is no longer there. But this building was badly damaged by arson in 1998, and it was just kind of shuttered and falling to pieces for many, many years. It was renovated by the National Park Service, and it just opened last year, last Labor Day. So it's now the visitor center for the national park, which is so cool that Chicago has a national park and that they have restored this historic building. So once you go to Pullman, this is the best place to start and get your info. They'll give you some materials, you know, about other things to visit, but of course you'll have your Chicago Scavenger book, so you'll have a little bit of a neighborhood tour, but I bet the park rangers could help you if you get stuck on any of the riddles down there. All right, just a few more. Let's go to the South Loop. These days it's got a, you know, lakefront location with historic neighborhoods, entertainment venues, sporting events, cultural attractions, but we're talking about a specific address down here. The Rolling Stones named a song for this address. It was once the recording home of chess, featuring legends like Etta and Muddy, preserving Chicago's famed blues legacy. Does Anyone know what this is? The address is 2120 South Michigan Avenue. Oh, Talia Hall is a good guess because that is an entertainment venue. It's not too far away. That's in the Pilsen neighborhood, but that was a former like community hall, and they had entertainment, all kinds of things there, and that's what it is again today. It's a music venue. People have weddings there, so it's really cool that that building has also been restored and is being used for its original purpose. It's not the House of Blues. That's a good guess. This is the Blues Heaven Foundation. So this is another small museum, but it's in the building where Chess Records was located. So in the 1950s and 60s, Chess is this legendary R&B label that produced hits like Johnny Be Good or Etta James's At Last. And blues legend Willie Dixon was an artist there for many years. He created this foundation to preserve the blues music's legacy and to secure royalties for the artists who did not always get their royalties. So he bought the building and created this foundation. So it's actually in the building where all this stuff was recorded, and they have the one Chess brother, I can't remember which one, his office is like still looks like it did back in the day. You can tour the building. You can see the sound, the studio where they recorded, or one of the studios. It was one that Keith Richards called the perfect sound studio. So when the Rolling Stones came to America, they were like pilgrimage to Chess Records and wrote a song about it because they were such fans of the music they recorded there. But when I went to visit, there were people there from all over the world, music fans who went also pilgrimage to see it. And I was the only person from Chicago, so I think it's a little known in Chicago, but it's right on Michigan Avenue in the South Loop. And they have a little garden next to the museum. So they typically in the summer have one night a week where they do a free concert. I'm not sure what night it will be this year, but a 1 weeknight they'll do free concerts in the garden. So yeah, go sample Chicago's music history, check out a little free music in the garden, and yeah, enjoy Chicago. I love the blues, so I'm a fan. Oops. Well, here we are in Westtown. Forgot to click click the clue, but Westtown, that's where I am right now. It's got neighborhoods like Wicker Park, Bucktown, Noble Square, Ukrainian Village, lots of vintage stores, creativity, cocktails, live music, good stuff. So here's our clue. Wicker Park's most acclaimed writer, honored here with falling water. His words are spelled out on the ground. At Polonia Triangle, it can be found. Does anyone know where this is? Or what writer we're talking about? Ooh, it's not Kevin Kobal, but he is an awesome poet, and I believe Young Chicago Authors is still, if it's still in the same location, it is in Westtown, not very far from this location. So that's a great guess, Darlene. So speaking of me writing a book with lots of these little poems about the city, Kevin Koval, I can't remember the name right now, but he wrote a book a few years ago, poetry inspired by Chicago history, that goes through time. It's fantastic. If I could remember the name, I would tell you, but check out his book of poetry on Chicago history. So this author we're talking about is Nelson Algren. He lived in Wicker Park for many years, right down the street on Evergreen. Yeah, very close to me. There's a street sign on my street that says like honorary Nelson Algren Way, even though he was like a few blocks away, but I'll take it. This is the intersection of Milwaukee, Ashland, and Division, and is named Polonia Triangle. It used to be the site of the Polish National Alliance and the Polish Daily News, this big Polish community. And Algren lived in the neighborhood. He often wrote about down and out individuals in society. And one of his quotes is here on the ground, which you can kind of see in that previous picture there, the little clue. The quote is from Chicago City on the Make, which is kind of a long poem in itself. But the quote is, for the masses who do the city's labor, also keep the city's heart. Because he was not so much writing about, the rich and powerful, he was writing about everyday people, and many of them in his own neighborhood. So I really enjoy that quote. All right, just one more for you here. Lincoln Park. It's home to Chicago's largest park, and it's easy to see why it's so popular in this neighborhood. It's picturesque and historic. The park was once a cemetery, but today it's got lots of green space and lakefront access, so it's a very popular and scenic place to go. Our clue here, on the history trail, this hunk of stone formed from rock, molten iron, and brick. The worst of disasters the city has known, proof of resilience lies in this relic. So this is a newer, well, that's kind of a trick question, but it's an old artifact in a new location. That's what I'll say. So prior to last fall, to have seen this artifact, you would have had to go digging in the bushes behind the History Museum. I wish I had a picture of it when it was in the bushes, but here it is, the Chicago Fire Relic. This looks like a hunk of junk, but it was a remnant from the Great Chicago Fire. It was found after the fire on the site of an iron warehouse. So this company had iron bars in their warehouse that were melted down into the structure of the store. So the brick and the stone of the store. And they formed this big hunk of molten stone and brick and iron. This whole remnant, as I said, was behind the History Museum in the bushes. I really enjoyed that because I liked kind of, the scavenger hunt vibe of going and like looking in the bushes and finding this thing from history. But now they've taken it out and they put it on display as part of a new history trail that opened around the History Museum in just last fall. So it's better now because they've got the whole story for context there on a plaque, and more people can walk by it, enjoy it, and admire it. Not just this, but it goes through some other parts of Chicago history. There's an area that talks about nature or indigenous people. And then there are sculptures from artists representing the different community centers in the park. So, and a lot of the parks and a lot of the neighborhoods in Chicago. So it's cool to see how the different artists and communities have chosen to represent themselves. Highly recommend the next time you're in Lincoln Park area to go walk on that little history trail. It's free. It's not part of admission or anything. It's just in the park. But yeah, you can see a bona fide piece of Chicago fire history. And then you can go down to the Fire Academy and see that bronze flame sculpture and see where it started. So that is all I have for you on the riddle front here in our scavenger hunt of Chicago. We just covered one place from each of the neighborhoods in the book, but in the book, we've got about 20 places in all of the neighborhoods. So there's a lot more to learn and explore all around town. So if you'd like to keep exploring, you can check out my book at chicagoscavenger.com, or of course, any bookstore near you. I will say that it is, there's been a slight printing delay, supply chain issues that I know we're all dealing with right now. So my book's a few days late, but it will be here any day. So if you order it and it doesn't come right away, that's why, but it'll be here any minute now. And I've got a discount code if you, as a thank you for attending if you're interested. I'm also doing a book launch party on May 21st at Shuba's Tavern in the Lakeview community. It's from 1 to 4 p.m. And I'll be signing books. We'll have some poets typing some custom poetry for folks. And then I've also got a raffle of prizes from the book. So if you're interested, please do come out. It's free to attend and come on down and say hello. And I've also just wanted to see if you have any questions or any of your favorite hidden gems in Chicago neighborhoods, in Elgin, anywhere in Chicagoland. I would love to hear it.